Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Space Jam: A New Legacy. Space Jam: A New Legacy is a 2021 American live-action / animated sports comedy film. LeBron James joins forces with the Looney Tunes to rescue his son from a digital realm by winning a high-stakes basketball game against a powerful AI team. I'm somebody that likes basketball. I enjoy watching basketball, but yikes, this was a hard watch. Let's talk about it with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? The plot sucked, dude. It was really boring. One thing you want with sequels is you want them to be purposeful. You want them to make a sequel for a need, a reason. You've got to tell this story. There's another perspective or aspect of a previous story that you've got to tell. Obviously, you read Space Jam with Michael Jordan. The only reason they made this is to make Space Jam with LeBron James, and it just wasn't worth it. I've never seen the original Space Jam, but I'm gonna assume. I know some people love it, but there's a lot of Michael Jordan fans out there that will love anything with him in it. From what I remember, people telling me it's also boring and it really isn't that good. This isn't any better. It just sucks. The bad guy is Al G Rhythm, who's supposed to be this computer. He's just boring. He's uninteresting. You literally, the first time you meet him, he's just like angry and he's just like, I just gotta, no one respects me and I need people to respect how smart I am, and they just don't care. Like, there's no depth to the character. I don't care about the character. It's just not that good. The plot was just really boring. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? If you're like 3 years old or 4 years old and love basketball and you'll just watch anything with basketball and do not care about the quality, then it has an attraction for you. But if you're a grown adult, this movie sucks and you're gonna notice it, and it's just not very good. It's just very flashy, lots of colors, lots of things going on. So if you're a kid, maybe you'll just like it. When you're a kid, you don't really care about the story all that much. Sometimes I do think kids enjoy a good story. They might find this one, they're not as picky, they might find this one entertaining. But if you're an adult, it sucks. It's boring. Third is theme. What message or truth is the movie trying to convey? Now, this movie is portraying the message of the value of a team and understanding that if you try to do everything on your own, you have your own faults and you're gonna fall short in places. But as a team, everybody has their own strengths and they can pick up where other people are not good. So it's just a nice, wholesome story about understanding that everybody has their strengths and to use them to your advantage. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversations? Hell no. This movie is terrible with dialogue. It is so cringy. And the crazy part to me is that adults make these movies. Like, how do you say these lines and feel good about it? I just don't get it, because when they talk to each other, it's not how real people talk to each other at all. It feels so forced, and it just drives me nuts when movies have terrible dialogue. It ruins the whole movie, because the characters are they're not going to be convincing if they don't even talk like a normal person. And when families don't interact like normal families, it doesn't work and it makes no sense. I just don't understand how anybody can watch this and be like, guys, no one says, dude, this sucks. Like, nobody talks like this. I don't understand how it gets that far. But it did. The dialogue sucked. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? No. They're not convincing. Not at all, dude. And part of that's dialogue, but part of it is the acting, alright? To be fair, the main actor is LeBron James, okay? Not exactly your average play kid at like 6'8", 230 pounds, whatever he is. I just don't think this man has ever had to act in his life outside of like a commercial, which nobody cares. He was bad. His delivery of lines was terrible. The lines didn't help him at all. He was very unconvincing. The weird thing is he plays himself. He's unconvincing as himself. Like, it should be easy. It should be easy for him to act. They gave him the easiest role possible. You. Just play you normally. So I feel like maybe they forced him into trying to play like a little more mean and evil version of himself. And it's just silly. Like, just be you. It would have made the movie way better if he actually felt like LeBron James, but he didn't. He felt like LeBron James playing another version of LeBron James, and it just wasn't good. Otherwise, Don Cheadle is like the only recognizable actor that I know of in this movie. To be fair, he's only known from Marvel. As far as I know him, I'm sure he's been in plenty of other movies. Marvel, I have its own gripes about acting. But he didn't do a good job. And he's like, as far as I can tell, the most seasoned actor in this movie. And he just doesn't do that good of a job. When really he could save this movie in a lot of ways. Because he is the villain. A good villain can really save a movie. I mean, part of that's writing. It's not a very good villain in writing. But he just didn't act it that well either. It wasn't that well done. So the acting, honestly, terrible. 6 is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? The only part of this movie that I can say is decent is the actual animation. But they went way too far. The animation is good. Like, I don't feel I looked at it and was like, man, that looks terrible. Other than using the Looney Tunes as their 3D models, I didn't like that choice. I don't really know why they did that. I feel like they should have just left it as the more of an original look, because that's what Looney Tunes are known as. Everyone knows them as the way they've looked in the cartoons for literally decades, and then you change the way they look and it's weird. It doesn't look that good. Also, there's just way too much flash and pizzazz and just stuff on the screen. They use like a million characters from Warner Bros. Because they do like a kind of like a universe. Everyone was in that still kind of, but getting out of that phase of just like universes and all coming together. And they do that, and it's just way too much. They shouldn't have done that. There's way too much on the screen to take you away from the actual game itself. And then I just felt like it was overwhelming and was just trying to be super stimulating for children, but it just wasn't that good. But the actual quality of the animation was pretty well done. 7th is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is an hour and 55 minutes. It's so terribly long, so long. And part of that is because it's a sucking movie, and you just don't want a bad movie to continue. But this movie is just so bad that I wouldn't have loved it to be 10 minutes. Like, it was just bad. It wasn't good. I hated it, and I wanted it to end. But objectively, it was too long for the story that was being told. It's supposed to be a very simple story. You don't need to get too in depth. It should be like an hour and 30 minutes. I mean, the original Toy Story is like an hour and 20 minutes, and I feel it tells much more of a story than this does. So there's no reason for it to be almost 2 hours long. It should have been way shorter. 8th is soundtrack. Now this movie just has regular music in it, and this is a very opinionated section. You have to like the music. Personally, I didn't. I just didn't think it was very good. I didn't think it fit very well. It was a small aspect that if they had done well with it could have saved this movie, because it's at the point where it's so bad that any small thing that does well can really help it be better. And it just fell flat. I just did not like it. I didn't think the soundtrack was that good, and I didn't think it fit well. 9th is directing. I feel the director is in charge of the previous 8 aspects. He's the one that's going to give it his stamp of approval, put it all together, and make a really good movie. Now, the director of this movie is Malcolm D. Lee. He is the cousin of the famous director Spike Lee, and this was his 11th film. The previous 10 films he directed were The Best Man, Undercover Brother, Roll Bounce, Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, Soul Men, Scary Movie 5, The Best Man Holiday, Barbershop, The Next Cut, Girls Trip, Night School, and finally Space Jam: A New Legacy. Now, let's be real. I have heard none of these movies. I know some of them when they came out, but they were never good enough that I really heard about how, oh, you've got to watch this movie, it's really good. I didn't hear none of that. All these movies seem like they're terrible, and I just don't get it. I don't get how directors who write terrible movies continue to get jobs. And maybe it's just me, and it's just my opinion on movies. I have not looked at like the box office numbers for these kind of movies. Maybe he has a very specific audience that he appeals to, that enjoys these movies, but I just feel like they're not good, and for the most part, nobody really likes him and nobody really watches him. This movie is not good. It's just terrible, and it's directing. The dialogue is awful. The actors don't do a good job. Part of that is the writing. It's not good at all, and then he sees these terrible aspects. I mean, if you hear the dialogue in this movie, you would understand. He hears that and goes, yep, that's good, cut, move on to the next scene. And it's like, why? They're terrible. Work on it a little bit. I mean, it's so blatantly bad. I don't get why directors like this continue to get jobs, but please, Malcolm, do not make another movie. Just put it away. 10th is Time. Will it stand the test of time? No. It will stand the test of time as a piece of garbage. Doo-doo. Terrible. It's bad. That's what it will stand the test of time for. Now for the reviews section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it a 26. The audience gives it a 79. And IMDb gives it a 45. Really widespread, voting here. I guess I'm wrong, because there is a group of people that like this movie. I mean, a 79 is just way too high. I don't know if children have now started making accounts to watch movies and rank them, or if there's just a bunch of adults that enjoyed this movie. I don't really know why you enjoyed it. It just doesn't really make sense to me. I think, honestly, I'm not as far as the critics in a 26, but that's because I'm comparing it to every movie ever. 26 is too low. It does have redeeming aspects to it. It does look good for the most part, and it does have the Looney Tunes and some interesting places and visuals within the movie, so it's just not a 26 bad. 45, I can agree with that. I can get down with the 40s, maybe even the 30s. There's just not much for this movie to me at all, other than the visuals, and I just want to give props to the people that sat there and took the time to make it look as good as it does. So maybe in those 40s is where it belongs. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2021, it is the only movie I've done, so it's going to be first in entertainment and first in cinematography. For the decade of the 2020s, on the entertainment side, out of 21 total movies, it is 21st, just below Reagan. It's last. It deserves to be there. This movie was hard for me to get through. I really, honestly, a quarter of the movie through, I was like ready to check out already. And then I just, I freaking put some effort into sitting there watching the rest of this movie. I did not like it. I didn't want to watch the rest of it, but I did. I will never watch it again. I will never suggest it to somebody. I've got it all the way down below Reagan, and Reagan, I honestly felt a lot of the same way, except for the fact that I didn't know a lot about Reagan himself, and so this movie was somewhat interesting, learning where he came from, and maybe I would watch it again for the historical aspect, but I will never watch any of them again. But if I had to choose between these two, I would honestly watch Reagan, even for all of its terrible parts. Just because I did not like pretty much any aspect at all of this movie. For cinematography, out of 21 total movies, I have it 20th, below Frogman and above Reagan. Now, Frogman, I've had to justify with Reagan, and it's the same justification here. It's not necessarily a bad movie. It somewhat is, because it's boring and the plot is boring, but there's There's redeemable aspects to the movie. It's just cheap. It didn't have a big budget. They went with what they could, and I feel like with what they had, they did a decent job. It's just when you're limited to budget, other movies are going to beat you fairly easily. This movie had a way bigger budget. The visuals are not enough to save this movie, because even the visuals became too much, and at some aspects didn't really look good. There's some bad choices made. So it's below Frogman, and honestly, it wasn't even that hard. I do think Frogman represents film better than Space Jam. It just has so many problems. I have it above Reagan. Reagan has a lot of problems as well. This is where the visuals do help Space Jam a little bit. It does look good for the most part. It's just too much at times, but there are definitely parts that look really good. Reagan, it doesn't have much of anything. Dialogue was terrible, acting was terrible, story plot didn't make any sense, it was told terrible. I mean, it just, every aspect of the movie was just sucked. And Space Jam at least has some visuals, and I feel that little part is redeeming it in the eyes of cinematography as an art. Alright, all time, on the entertainment side, out of 30 total movies, it's 30th. It's below Reagan. It's the worst movie I've watched so far, and I will never go back to watch it again. Cinematically, out of 30 movies, it's 29th. Again, below Frogman and above Reagan. It's there for the exact same reasons as before. It's one of the worst movies I've watched so far, and I'm hoping the next movie I watch is going to be better. That's all I've got for Space Jam: A New Legacy. Let me know in the comments, did you like it? Was it a movie that you enjoyed? If you enjoyed watching my movie rankings, go check out my best friend Damo. He does Bosso movie reviews now. Sorry, he changed his name. Kind of got to remember it now. I'll put his link in the description. Go check him out. He does the exact same thing I do. He ranks them against the year, decade, and all time. He has a very different opinion. He likes movies that are movies I don't like, and he dislikes movies I do like. So make sure you go check him out. Otherwise, comment a movie that you want me to review next. Make sure you subscribe so that you can watch me review that movie. But otherwise, I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.